Now, I'm going to put some of this on the board before we start on the little news snippets. So one, God, it's all short here, the chalk. Okay. So first of all, we'll discuss methods of surveillance. And you've got some of them there. And then methods of censorship. And I'm just going to give you a few examples now, real ones out of the papers, so you get some idea before we go right through the list. Now, I like this woman. This is Antonia Zerbasius. She's very upfront, and she's a good journalist. And she says here that there's an alarming takeover of our airwaves. Remember that the biggest thing about censorship is ownership. These two sheets you've got will tell you who owns most of the media. It's a very small group. And so she says here in this article, and the reason I read like this with one eye is because I've had a lens put in there. When you get a cataract, they suck out the old lens and they put in a bionic one. So this is distance. I mean, I could see down to the lake with this eye, but I use this one for reading because this sees up close. But this new one, you know, I'm like the bionic woman. So anyway, she says here, the FCC will announce new rules governing media ownership. The Republican-controlled commission, now this is Canada she's talking, is expected to allow a single corporation to own enough TV stations to reach 45% of viewers, up from the current 38%. The overhaul would also let a company own both a TV station and a newspaper in the same local market, which is allowed in Canada, where CanWest Global owns both in cities across Canada. So now the States is going to do what we're doing here. And of course, I want to put my favorite motto up here. God, they're really running out of chalk here. This is true. Whoever prints the money, this is mine, but you can have it. Whoever prints the money prints the news. That is a fact. Yes. That's why this is at the core of every other censorship. Our money is owned by a small private group who keep us in debt and under control by charging interest on numbers on paper on the new money, which is a crime against humanity. I mean, the kings, monarchs, they never charged anything on money that just came out. Once it went to the banks and it was doing stuff, fine. But these people charge us for numbers that they print on paper, and they have nothing backing it. But that's where our debt comes from. 700 billion debt. 90% is interest, compounding as I'm speaking here. These people have no right to do this. This is the biggest crime of all. If you have a printing machine, you can own the whole town. If you print the money, you can own anything you want, so they own all the media. They have no right to do that. Our bank at least used to print 50% of our money interest-free. We can still do it in our charter, but not with somebody like Carney heading up our publicly owned bank. So when you get right back to it, censorship, surveillance, it all comes out of this. They own the media. They can print as much money as they want to bribe anybody, own anybody, threaten anybody, kill anybody. When we get to the presidential assassinations, you'll see. So they have all the power. Then even Al Jazeera, in Israel, they get Al Jazeera. We can't. We cannot. It's censored. before we see it. But in Israel, it's uncensored. They all get Al Jazeera. What are we, you know? We don't have the rights they even have in Israel to get Al Jazeera. So she says here, it's good enough for CBC and many Israelis, so why can't we get the Arab station on our sets? Good question. So we are a very special group here. This is some kind of lab. Now here's another one. Cops eavesdrop 103 times in 2008. Oh, please, add another one to that. That's another thing they do. If you have a protest with 200,000 people, they'll make it 2,000, maybe 50,000 if you're lucky. The cops have eavesdropped 103 times. Oh, that would be heavenly. That would be great if that were true. But it's not true. So here's another little thing I cut out. Listen to this. Don't jump on the euthanasia bandwagon. Because in Holland, as I told you, when we get down to the medical part, in Holland, you can't even go there for a visit. One woman got sick there. They killed her off in the hospital. She didn't even say a word. She didn't get to leave Holland. So that's what they do there. They can do it even if it's not voluntary. Now listen to this. In commenting on the results of the survey that found 75% of Quebec medical specialists in favor of legalizing euthanasia. What? If you're sick, don't go to a hospital, okay? Better to find some friends or go out in the woods, do what the animals do, go away, hide somewhere till you're better. Don't go into a hospital. That's the last place you want to be if you're sick. So it says here, one might think that Dr. Gaetan Barrette, president of the Quebec Federation of Medical Specialists, oh yeah, was musing about fashion trends. This is how casually they discuss this, okay? First, the public takes it up, he says, then the doctors, and finally the legislators. It's as simple as that. Follow the trend. So don't go to Quebec then. If that happens there, don't be caught dead there. Okay? Quebec. So it says here, this trend is deadly. We can't just respond to the sad stories of people with horrible diseases by jumping on the euthanasia bandwagon. It takes a little more knowledge and reflection than that to change the several thousand-year-old notion that killing is wrong. But it's so common now, and soon it'll be called the norm. Oh, their people aren't killing each other in your country? Oh, how interesting. Okay, so soon it'll be the norm. And disabled rights advocates are passionately opposed to legalization of euthanasia, and they have a good reason to oppose it. They are the people who are seen, I'm quoting this, as needing to be killed. Oh yeah. It's going ahead big time. Or who are seen as needing to be killed. So Oregon is one of the 2 American states where assisted suicide is legal. Oh, she wasn't well, so I just took the bat and I assisted her. You know, they don't know what you're going to do, how you're going to do this. And, and the insurance company stated that it could not, unfortunately, pay for the expensive treatment. Get this is why they gave her the assisted suicide. Now get this. The insurance company stated it could not pay for the expensive treatment for her chronic disease, but that it would be happy to pay a few dollars for assisted suicide instead. This is happening. Imagine getting a letter like that. about your sister, brother, mother, whatever. Even your kid, if he was disabled. We can't afford to keep them alive, the pills, which cost about 1 cent a piece, by the way. But we'll help you to put them out of their misery. So this is what's happening now with the Dutch people. Get this. The elderly Dutch people are moving across the border into Germany to ensure they do not become one of the 500 or so Dutch who are euthanized involuntarily every year. What? It's worse than Brave New World. It's much worse. I mean, this is what's happening. These elderly people who've lived in Holland all their lives are escaping. Oh. So they'll figure out a way soon of stopping them at the border. Oh, look at them. They look older. Don't let them out. Anyway, here's a bit of typical censorship. The tobacco giant, Imperial Tobacco Canada, destroyed 7 million pages of research, which included decades worth of studies that indicated the devastating effects of smoking. That's your first censorship right there. They surveilled, they had their little surveys. They saw how many people were in for lung disease, cancer of the mouth, all this. And then oh my God, now that we know all this, let's get rid of it. We don't want anybody to know what we know. Then I remember, this is an article I did some years ago, in Discourse and Disclosure. They had a big consumer health show down at the, where they have the convention center. And they had 2 men that were going to speak there that were going to talk about poverty, because poverty has everything to do with your health. Everything to do with it. And these 2 men that were going to talk about that, they gave them a terrible review and pressured until they were cut from the agenda. Didn't want anyone down there talking about poverty and how that applied to your health. No, you're not supposed to connect the dots. That's another form of it. They don't want anybody connecting any dots. Nothing has anything to do with anything else. Okay? And this is the other part of the censorship. Or somebody, if you have a really good question and somebody wants to keep that out, they'll say, off topic. So what they said was that poverty was off topic as regards your health. So these 2 people were cut from the agenda. Now, another thing you can do, and this is popular, when you don't want a newspaper to talk about a certain subject, you withdraw your advertising. Well, a paper depends on its advertising. So at one point here, they put a chart in the Star that came out of the, I think it was the New York Times. What does it says here? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah. They had a chart, but it came from an American newspaper. And so what happened was they were first produced by the New York Times. So somebody who was president of a memorial chapel, Michael Benjamin, always had ads in the Star, and then he said he's not going to put his ads in anymore. But they said we got it out of the New York Times. It was just a chart. How many Palestinians dead? Like the latest one, where they said it's a conflict, and there were like 7 Israelis dead and 1,400 Palestinians dead. This is not a conflict, people. So anyway, the ad was taken out, so they can do that. Now, I guess you didn't know this, but we have a Press Freedom Day here. And I believe it's this date on here, May 3rd, 2009. So they had a Press Freedom Day about all the journalists who risked their lives getting the truth. It's called Press Freedom Day. And trust me, they do risk their lives. You've got a paper down there that tells you how many were killed in Iraq, over 60 that weren't embedded, and Bush warned them. You journalists out there, I heard them, who aren't embedded, you're in danger, great danger. And of course they were, and they were shot at, and a lot were killed. And in Jenin and Nablus, there was tens or dozens killed there. If they saw a guy with a camera or anybody, a truck pulled up, gone, bang, you know, just shoot them, which is the ultimate censorship, of course. And here, there's one heading here, U.S. troops unlawfully killed the British journalist, the coroner said. And one of Britain's most experienced journalists was unlawfully killed by U.S. soldiers in Iraq. But many more were killed than this guy. And they weren't killed by Iraqis, trust me, okay? And here's another woman. This is Margolis. The Russian journalist, this woman, Anna Politkovskaya, who exposed all the massive human rights violations, knew her days were numbered. Well, she did get killed because she was investigating what they were doing over there. So they shot her. She came outside her home and they just shot her down. Now, there's another little paper down here. Where is it? Oh, Reporters Without Borders, and they published every country and the rating they gave them on their freedom of the press. It's very, very interesting. We've got a number 5. The U.S. is number 17 because they keep jailing reporters who won't give away their source. So they're in jail. They're not dead, but they're in jail. But Canada ranks 18th for media freedom. Still, we're ahead of the U.S. and way, way ahead of China. So we're supposed to be happy about that one. We're ahead of China, where they just take your organ even while you're still alive and sell it.
Do we dare ask who's first?
Pardon?
Do we dare ask who's first?
One of the Scandinavian countries. They're on this list. In fact, there's 3 or 4 of them right at the top. And these are the countries that a lot of unaware Americans say, oh, they're socialist. Oh, okay. It's the first one is Finland, then Iceland, Norway, Netherlands, and Canada. Now, the Netherlands might not be on the list shortly, depending on how many elderly they kill off. We don't know. And here's another one by Thomas Wacom. There's a federal bill that adds to the spy powers of the state. Now, this is called, and I have it in my notes here, the Modernization of Investigative Techniques Act. The bill would require companies offering these services to install equipment. We're talking about your computers, all of this. And these companies offering these services have to install equipment that would allow the state to monitor all of their customers. So if you're doing your computer, your laptop, they have, these people that sell these have to do this now. On top of that, it would give police and the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, the CSIS, the power to demand, without the need for court warrants, any information that internet or phone companies keep on their customers, including addresses, passwords, and credit card information. And Canada's now changed it under their anti-terror laws, that these warrants, if they have to have a warrant to look at all the contents of your messages, they're very easy to get. So you can't run, you can't hide. You know, you have to get off the grid if you want these people not to have their noses in your life. Now, Radwanski, the other privacy commissioner, he was a stickler for privacy. He stopped them from doing a lot of things. And what happened to him? they didn't like that he was stopping them, so they accused him of spending too much money in his expenses. He went before a panel and they got rid of him, accusing him of spending thousands more, which he didn't, on lunches and stuff. They couldn't get him on anything. He was completely honest. So they said he was overcharging, and they got him on that, and he's gone. So he was Canada's privacy watchdog. They said they've lost confidence in him because he had expenses like every politician. What about the big news thing about they even charge their brand muffin and their coffee to their expenses, even though they get huge salaries? And this is what they got him on. They accused him of spending too much money. Oh, also under scrutiny is Radwanski's spending, which included, they're saying, $100,000 in travel during the last year. But they have no proof of that either. So they just didn't like Radwanski. He was a stickler. He didn't want them doing all that. However, the spy agency boss, this is recently too, snooping the web is vital. We have to snoop the web. This is what they're saying. The head of Canada's eavesdropping agency says it needs to own the internet to combat terrorism. Now, this guy's John Adams, chief of Canada's little-known spy agency. This is what it's called, the Communications Security Establishment. This is a new thing. So he says they've got to own the web. Okay, and it's quietly become one of the most powerful agencies. No other federal agency benefited more from the resources after September 11. So the CSIS budget and this new one called the Canada's Communications Security Establishment, after 9/11, they got a $220 million budget, more than double what they got before 9/11. Okay? Here's another thing you have to be aware of in the now, and this was way back when. Paul Martin says civil rights are first and foremost, and they will be protected. So why even consider introducing laws that'll give cops access to the email and internet use of Canadians? And it was Irwin Cotler that did that. Irwin Cotler, the author of this mess. He's the one that took away all the freedoms. CSIS is now spying on all the mosques. I don't know if they dress up like Arabs and go and pray or whatever, but they're spying in the mosques. And then there's an internet ad firm sued over the spyware. There's lots of spyware you can buy. And now there's going to be a wiretap tax. They're going to tax you so they can spy on you. This is the newest thing. So we're going to pay for our own surveillance. It says here, Canada's police chiefs want phone companies to add a 25-cent surcharge to phone and internet bills to cover the costs of tapping into the communications of criminals. Who are all those criminals? Okay? Scarier still is a proposal being considered by the feds. And here we go again. That would require service providers to build into their systems the tech needed by cops and intelligence agencies to more easily tap into communications. Now it's here. It says, thankfully, Bell is dead set against the wiretap surcharge idea. Okay? So far. Okay? Just add that to everything so far. So they want us to pay so that they can check into our conversations. Now here's a really hilarious one. They went out, they did a protest in the States. And instead of allowing these people to walk along the street, this is what they did. They had a huge, I guess it's chicken wire, about 10 feet high fence. And what they did was they told the whole parade they had to get inside this fence. This was called the free speech area. There's now a free speech area. So, yes, it's in the States, but so what? Everything they got, we got. So this poor guy here with his sign, they went out when the president was passing, I guess to throw a few shoes, and they were herded into this big fenced area, and he said to the guy, well, I thought the whole country was a free speech area. He said to the police, but no. So they all went into this, about the size of this room here, the whole parade, behind these high wire fences like prisoners, and they had their free speech there. Well, who's going to hear their free speech? They can't go to the parade. They're all cooped up, and then they can all talk to each other. Free speech. Now, remember when George Galloway tried to come to Canada? He couldn't even get in. They banned him. He's in the British Parliament, an MP, and they banned him from coming in, but everyone in our country was so embarrassed. I mean, what did we look like? He's an MP. He can't come in here. He can't speak about what he saw in Gaza. He can't come in here. So an MP was denied to come into Canada because of that. Doesn't make those people look very good, does it? So here's another one on censorship. And this is way back in '98 from the Spotlight. Edgar Bronfman, in Prohibition, they got their start, with the gangsters. He says here, Canadian censorship. Customs police in Canada oftentimes get hyperactive. 3 books recently seized because they contained hate have been The Irish Fairy Tales. They were seized. The Evil Empire, Globalization's Darker Side, that was seized. And The Breakdown of the Criminal Justice System in Canada, that was seized. Couldn't even come in as far back as '98. So without a First Amendment, remember, more of this goes on here because we don't have a First Amendment. We don't have a Free Speech Amendment. Sorry, we don't. What we have in the Human Rights Commission, or the human rights that was attached to the BNA Act, we have the BNA Act, that's what we have for Constitution. Added to that, we have the Charter of Human Rights, okay? That's added to it. But under the Human Rights Commission, okay, and you can read it right there. It's written right in there. It says, the truth is no defense. That's our free speech. The truth is no defense. It doesn't matter if it's a fact. Nothing matters except if you make any group feel bad, it doesn't matter how long ago it was, if you have these facts and any group feels bad because of that, you can be jailed. Yes, you can. The truth is no defense, okay? That's what we have instead of what the Americans have. And you know what they say in that? The Free Speech Amendment is to protect unpopular speech. They know popular stuff's okay. They say that in the First Amendment. The second one is that you're allowed to be armed against a tyrannical government. That's the second half that nobody ever reads. Oh, those nuts with guns. But here, it's not about preserving the right of unpopular speeches. It's about the truth is no defense. Now, how Orwellian is that? And it's right in there, you can read it. If any group feels insulted, hurt, whatever, you can be jailed. So that's what we have. Now that's a terrific censorship right there, isn't it? Look, this is going to censor all kinds of stuff. It's really sad. So those 3 books were banned. Without a First Amendment, the Canadian public is helpless. So it says here we shouldn't even make a pretense that we have freedom of speech. We don't. And here's another one. Now this is really good. I love this. The New York Sun suggests treason prosecution for free speech. This is in the States. Okay? It says, since 9/11, we have documented many instances in which pundits and politicians have tried to demonize dissent, suggesting that it is unpatriotic. Well, they say that now. But none has gone as far as to suggest an actual prosecution for treason simply for voicing one's political view. Okay, the editors of the New York Sun newspaper, founded last year, call on New York City to obstruct a protest against a potential war in Iraq, this is when this happened, for as long as possible, and to monitor the protesters for, quote, an eventual treason prosecution. Of course, they're not going to get away with it because they have an amendment. We do not. Now, here's another one. Here we are, May 25th, 2009. JINSA, which is the Jewish Institute for National Security Affairs. Here's the headline. This is from the American Free Press. JINSA article says outlets who oppose future wars, like papers and all that, outlets, should be silenced, killed if necessary, by military strike. Yes, it's right in, the article is stated right here. You can go get it and read it. One article entitled Wishful Thinking and Indecisive Wars, written by Ralph Peters, states flatly, although it seems unthinkable now, future wars may require censorship, news blackouts, and ultimately military attacks on the partisan media. So if they don't like your radio station, drop a bomb on it. This is what they're recommending. So I love the American Free Press, and you can research where they get their information. Now, one nice little note at the end of all this, before we go into these, a U of T lab, a couple of years ago, unveiled an anti-censorship tool. Now, this is what it's called, and but it might be hard to find because it says right here, by requiring only login information and no installation, it's called Siphon. Siphon. P-S-I-P-H-O-N. See if you can find that, because they opened up with this about 3 years ago. And it's, Siphon functions much the same as any typical browser. So give it a try. So these are all the things they're doing. Well, not all of them. This is nothing. This is just a little sample of what I managed to dig out of my files on the weekend. But it's all perfectly horrible. And they're going on from there. So, now, it's not what actually happens. What's important to them is what you perceive, what you believe. It's nothing to do with what is actually happening, okay? So if you want to sit home and sit in front of your TV and live vicariously, then that's what you're going to be hearing and going along with. So, oh yeah, I better tell you. So John Swinton, who was head of the whole press of the New York Press Club, they had a great big New Year's party. About 1,000 journalists were there, all kinds of news people, and he made a speech. And he said, we are all prostitutes. He said, we say what the people, the bankers and the other people tell us to say. And we self-censor. We don't even ask them. We know what we can't say. John Swinton. That year was 1914.
Wow.
1914. So you can imagine what it's like now. We're now going to, first of all, get into the methods of surveillance, going way, way back to even the Battle of Waterloo, when Rothschild had a courier. He'd sent him over there early, and he took over England and the stock exchange because his courier got back first. And he said to him, Rothschild, he said, Wellington is winning. So what did Rothschild do? Here we go, because don't forget, without promise, you can't do insider trading, okay? So the first insider trading was surveillance. His courier got back first, told him that. What does he do? Everyone's watching him. He had a great big belly. He stood by his favorite pillar, and he gave this gloomy look and started selling his British bonds. They were called British consols. And when they were all down to like a couple of pennies, he just gave a nod to his agents and they started buying them up at pennies. Because everybody in the stock exchange thought, if he looks gloomy, it means we lost. Napoleon's won, we lost. So they started selling all their British bonds until it went right down. His agents bought them all up. And by the time everybody else knew that Wellington had won, Rothschild owned most of England. Now that's insider trading. The government courier didn't get back for hours after his courier got back. And so the stock market, that's why they call it the big casino. It's built on rumors. So when they saw him, this is what they all did, and that's how he ended up owning the whole place. And so the couriers, they used homing pigeons for a long time as messengers to get there faster. And so did Rothschild use them. I don't even know if there's any left. But they were used in war. They would come home, yes, and you would get the message. It was almost like a telegraph after that, but it was really fast compared to what everybody else had. And now, we'll just come up to today. Now we have physical trackers, okay. Some people have offered to take a chip into themselves, their pets, their kids, some of them. That woman came on TV, oh yes, I'm worried about them kidnapped. Oh yes, we're all tagged. So you've got actually physical surveillance, and the chips can tell all kinds of things about you, not just where you are. So they have the chips. Then you've got the RDIF, it's down there too, how that works. So those are physical. You've got cameras everywhere. Now they came on the news the other day, they're putting a whole pile of extra cameras downtown in Toronto. London, you can't even go 10 feet without a camera. They've got them down here, up there, in all the labs, the phone booths. They have so many cameras. So London is like one big spy thing with cameras everywhere. And then you have the bugs that can be inserted in your phone that work when the phone's not even on. They just record everything that goes on in your room, okay? So there's bugs in the phones, not just when you're talking on the phone, but there's local bugs used to record whatever goes on in that room. I mean, some of these things are truly physical. And then they not only have that, but they have little tiny mechanical, almost nanobot things that look like real bugs. And they can be remotely directed to any wall in your home, yes. If you've said, oh, I'd like to be a fly on the wall and here, well, that's what they are. They're made to look like little flies, really tiny. They record everything and they take pictures, okay? Actual nano bugs that look like real bugs. And if you want to find out more about them, go to a website called Bug Sweep. It's very good. It'll tell you all the modern stuff. And I think the woman's name is Catherine Albrecht. She has that website. Spychips, well, this one's called Bug Sweep too, so you can get her on the other one as well. I've heard her interviewed several times, but she knows every little thing they've got, how they apply it, who's going to do it to you, what company. Now, the one that we have, I've never been on the net, by the way. I work from 400 files that I've collected since the 50s. I am not on the net. If somebody wants to bring me something, fine. But what happens with me is I just get a lot of overnight packages from connections I had in my work when I worked in the States and all of that. So I'm not on the net. So whoever thinks I'm getting all this off the net, no, never have, okay? So what we have now, oh, and don't forget, directional pickups in your neighborhood. You can have somebody sitting in a van 2 or 3 blocks away, just like, you know, this has been going on for years. Private company use that. They just point their little mic towards your living room or your home or whatever. They record everything that goes on in there. And the next one we have, of course, is W, 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 and then you give your, this was invented by the CIA and it was called the World Wide Wiretap. Now, that is what you have now and what you're putting your websites on. Now, why is that? They're not going to shut down the net for the simple reason that if the police have a lot of things going on at the same bar, like say it's a biker bar, not the ones that are on Bay Street now in their second childhood, they're all going around on motorbikes trying to look like Easy Rider. This is like, you know, when men go through their second thing. But anyway, the worldwide wiretap, and the reason that's not going to be shut down, it'll be censored sometimes, it'll be blacked out if you want to find something. It's like leaving the biker bar untouched. That way, you can keep tabs on all the bikers. You know where they're going to be every night of the week. You can just be in there, hearing everything that's going on in the bar. Why shut it down? You've got an inside track on what this club is doing. Well, that's what that is. They want you to go on there. They're not going to shut it down as much as they may threaten to. They may censor it. They may blacklist. I mean, you can go on certain sites. Some people live on the net 24 hours a day, and they monitor everything. But a lot of things they want to go on, it's all blacked out. But they're not going to close it down. It's the equivalent to the local biker bar. And all the police, they want to know what's going on. The people that are policing the world. So that helps them quite a lot. Now, the next thing we're going on to, on top of that, we have Echelon. Okay? I'm not even sure how they... Now, Echelon. Now, Echelon's been around for a very long time. Now, I'm just going to... I have something on this. Now, right now, in fact, there'll be more. The U.S. Space Command, quote, there are 2,548 plus satellites orbiting the Earth. They code all the bits of info, they steal it and deliver to the agents, and the Department of Justice doesn't even admit to Echelon. So Echelon, I could name these satellites if you want, the main ones, but Echelon can pick up information from anywhere. Now, they don't have a bunch of people sitting around on phones listening. What it is, everything is organized under codes. Every group they watch and listen to has a code number. And this listening thing is set off. They've got their own dictionaries, okay? I mean, just think of words that might key them right in. I mean, if somebody says, bomb, 9/11, Arabs, blah, blah, they've got a whole new dictionary now, and it just automatically, if you're talking to someone on your phone, there's many countries involved in Echelon. They've got Canada, the US, New Zealand, Japan, Australia. They all have bases for Echelon all over the world. And they all mingle together. They use the same dictionary. So if you're on the phone and you put in a few of the magic words, you are automatically listened to. This thing is so huge. You can't imagine how huge it is. It covers the planet. The satellites. If you were in the middle of the desert reading a tiny Bible, the print, that satellite could read that page you're reading, even if it's 23 miles, whatever, above the earth. Yes. The eye in the sky. So Echelon is connected to every country, but they won't admit it to you, okay? They don't talk about it. So mainly now, they're concentrating on dissent. Now, dissent covers a huge area. Dissent and economics. You'll see where I'm going with this at the end, when we get to the end. So that's what they're concentrating on now. Dissent means anyone that they consider is objecting to the world order. That's called dissent. And or you're on the patriots, it's all Orwellian now. So the patriots are now unpatriotic. The people who've served in the armies, they're now to be distrusted. These could be terrorists at any moment. So it's totally Orwellian. So now Echelon is concentrating on this. The reason they want to know everything about you, unless it's about blackmail, they don't care about your sex life. What they want to know is what you own, what they can confiscate, what you know, how the company you keep. That's what they need to know. And this is what they investigate. So the United Kingdom, Echelon is in a place called, it looks to me like Menwith Hill in England. They're huge arrays of, and they're protected from the weather. And the other one is in Washington in the US, in Washington and Virginia. These are huge setups. And they all hook up to each other. And they can tune in to anybody on this earth who has a phone, especially cell phones. They like those because you can really track on the cell phone because your other phone's at home all the time. Doesn't mean you're there, but they know where you are with the cell phone. And I'm just quoting here what it says here. They can intercept phone calls, financial transactions, cable, anything they want to intercept, they can do. And the satellites, the 2,000 and some odd satellites, these satellites can actually pull the information out of the air. They just pull, they suck it in. The satellites up there are sucking in information all the time. So Echelon's been around at least 20 years, maybe longer, that I know of. And we're in on it as well. Now, the next one we come to, oh, by the way, if you know anything about broadband over power lines, this is what they wanted to do, but 3 countries threw it out because it was interfering with every other communication. The electronic noise was hideous. It interfered with shortwave. It confused everything. I'll just read you what they said here, why they got rid of it. It says, what did I say in the back of this? Oh yeah, 7 countries got rid of it because it destroys over-the-horizon radar, it disrupts cordless phones, AM broadcasting, it destroys emergency communications between, ambulances, whatever, destroys that. But in the meantime, it tells all these companies what you watch, when you go to sleep, what you eat. It's all hooked up to all your appliances. So 3 countries have already thrown it out. It doesn't bloody work.
Which countries were?
Japan threw it out. I think Australia threw it out. There was 4 or 5 countries that ended up throwing it out. Now, the next thing we have, now Echelon keeps tabs on everybody, everywhere, and all you have to do is say a few magic words. The next one, and the one that was used in 9/11, for the put options, for the stand downs, it was used for all of it. And it's called promise. The prosecutors, the prosecutors' management. This is how it started out, but it's been added to information. And it was invented by a guy called Bill Hamilton, and his company was called Inslaw. It was about the laws, okay? Inslaw. It kept track of every case for the prosecutors right throughout the United States. It could put things together, organize them, collect them, organize them. It could do all this. So Bill Hamilton in the 80s was renting it to the Department of Justice, the DOJ. He was renting it to them. They saw the possibilities. They wanted to buy it. He said no. So they said, we'll bankrupt you, which they did. He went to court about it. He won the case. It was told he would get $6 million from them for doing that. The judge said they stole it from him with trickery and deceit. And what happened to that judge? His term was not renewed. Not renewed. And Bill, who was supposed to get $6 million, they got another judge, and they appealed, and he didn't get a bloody dime. They got promise. They got promise. Now, this would be a wonderful movie if they would let it out. So after the judge's appointment was blocked, what do? The DOJ gives this software to the CIA. Gives it to the CIA. A computer whiz kid with the CIA named, what was his name now? Ron Escuto, I think it was. Recon Escuto, Michael. A CIA whiz kid. He gets the software, a copy of it. He, the genius, puts a back door into promise. A back door. Well, what is a back door? Backdoor means that anyone who buys that software, their information is going to the person right back to them who owns it. And the people buying it don't know there's a backdoor in it. So this is what happened after the backdoor was in it. The Senate investigated it for 3 years. Nothing happened. Then Earl Bryan, who owns United Press International, UPI, he takes this with the backdoor and he takes it to Israel and he demonstrates it how it works. And this was, the information was given by a guy, Ari Ben Menash, a Mossad agent, said that Earl Bryan demonstrated the backdoor version of Promise in Israel in 1987. Now, the guy who put the backdoor in went to court and gave testimony. And when he was giving testimony, he said, you know, I'm going to go to jail for letting this out, that I've done this to this software. And sure enough, 8 days after he did his testimony, he's jailed for 30 years for drugs. So he was set up and jailed for putting the back door in, the CIA guy. So now Promise will send back all the information by people who are working it. And Ben Menash tells about this. And so 88 countries bought this Promise with a back door without knowing it had a back door, okay? And it was all going back, accordingly to this guy, to Israel. So, Promise, now this is what Promise can do. Promise is a work of art, and Bill Hamilton should be getting billions. It can track, collect, and organize a very wide range of data. It can track money around the world, and as in 9/11, not only can it collects and organizes, and Bill Hamilton is still around, he still owns Inslaw, and it can intervene. It can intervene and override any other software going. And override any software. Okay. In fact, Catherine Austin Fitz, who's a financial whiz and has done a lot of work for the government, she said, Bernie Madoff could not have stolen the $50 billion without cooperation and promise. She said that. So when you're thinking about it collects, it organizes, it intervenes, it overrides any software, oh, so the stand downs. What else? Oh, the put options. And a guy named Robert Maxwell was the one who distributed the Promise, and he was found drowned right beside his yacht. I think it was around 88, 89. Robert Maxwell, who distributed this, whose name was really Jan Hoch, H-O-C-H, and he was involved in selling that and distributing it on behalf of the Israelis. So this is what it can do. And Maxwell, there was another, what was really funny about Maxwell, when they found him drowned, and he was the one, the British guy, and he owned a huge company, a communications company. They said he drowned because he was standing on the deck of his yacht, urinating, and he fell over. So you have to say to yourself, doesn't a luxury yacht have bathrooms? Or doesn't it have a railing around the deck where you can't just fall off the deck of a yacht. But that's what they said happened to him. He just died. He slipped off while he was having a quick whiz off the deck. And they expected everybody to believe that. And it was where he drowned, it was just off Tenerife there near the Canary Islands. And the judge who examined and did the whole case about Robert Maxwell, how he died, she'd already been on trial herself twice and was declared mentally ill a couple of years later. A young female Spanish judge who was declared mentally ill. So then they tried to reopen the case again. Now not Maxwell, but Bill Hamilton is still alive, still has his company, but I don't know what actually happened if he went back to court. You'd have to go and look it up. But all this happened over Promise. Promise was the most wonderful software. It was so advanced. And so when the Department of Justice saw how well it worked for them over the whole country, he said, no, I'll keep leasing it, I'll keep renting it to you, but I'm not going to sell it. So they just phoned him up and said, well, we'll make sure you go bankrupt because we want it. They saw immediately what they could do militarily with Promise. And they did a lot of things with Promise, including the 9/11 setup. So I'll just see if I've got it all in here now. See, what it does is it finds patterns. I'll just quote from this. It combines data mining, artificial intelligence, and this is their word, interoperability. It can combine, override, find any software it wants, go in there, and do whatever it wants under that software. It will override any other commands. And of course they would need it to do 9/11. So, interoperability, it just means that if you use this software, you can come in on any program, it doesn't matter what it is, and you can change that. It overrides any other program. You can collect, organize, intervene, operate, subsume, whatever you want to call it. So data mining is a technique for detecting and extracting meaningful patterns hidden within vast quantities of apparently meaningless data. So this Promise is almost like an artificial intelligence. It thinks, it rearranges. And it was Bill Hamilton's. So applications include policing, of course, and case management. That's what it started out as. It was managed every case. It knew what was happening to every criminal, every prosecution, every case all over the United States. It kept track of them all of them, okay? So it would be case management, then it would be banking. It does banking, risk management, enterprise architecture, knowledge management, the gathering and sifting of political and industrial intelligence information. It's got it all. Promise was the ideal software. So, it was stolen from Bill. Let's just go down the list here. He sues, he loses. The Department of Justice gives it to the CIA. The CIA agent puts in a trap door in Promise to eavesdrop on all their customers in 88 nations who bought it. Earl Bryan, the owner of Universal, yes, thank you, sorry. I've only got UPI here, and I know it wasn't the package deliveries. And he takes Promise to Israel in '87 after pirating Promise, okay? This is who did that. Then Robert Maxwell, a British publisher, distributes Promise on behalf of the Mossad, okay? Then he has the suspicious death. So, now here we just, the computational power of the P-TECH evolution of promise, they added things to promise, represents a daunting new surveillance and intervention capability in the hands of the same people who did 9/11. They couldn't have done it without promise, without this software. Like she said, Madoff couldn't even have stolen the $50 billion without promise. It can get in anywhere, any software, any time. Everything comes back to you, everything you want to know. So of course, the war on terror, they need it desperately. But that is state of the art. Promise is state of the art. They keep adding things to it. And they need that to do what they're going to do in all the other wars to come. So now, once you are surveilled and you are censored, for instance, when I was at this, well, I had a radio show on CIUT, which is part of this university, about 10 years ago. It was a good show. It was popular. We had fundings. We got hundreds of thousands, had a huge audience all over New York State. All of a sudden, they locked the doors on us, physically locked us out one day. 4 or 5 programmers that gave all this kind of information out, told us they didn't need our information, gave like 8 hours time to some mining company. We made a big stink. We went to this CRTC. We did everything for about a year. We never got back in. I did Undercurrents. Bruce Cattle, who was given some of the bad blood by Health Canada, he's dead now. And we were all locked out. Then a couple of years ago, all the volunteers at Ryerson Radio were locked out. Just a few of them have gotten back recently. So they're always censoring. They don't want people to hear this news. And so we were shut out. Some of the people have got back on CKLN, but that's all censoring. So now, what happens if you continue to be one of those people that dissents and gives out this kind of information? Well, something else happens to you. If you persist in telling the nasty truth, if you still have your little paper going, if you're still giving talks, if you've got a little radio station or something, even if you're on a bloody street corner or you're just, the next thing that happens to you involves just taking everything you own from you, legally. And that's called, and we have it here, the law of forfeiture. If you just won't obey and you keep dissenting and getting other people on the bandwagon, this is what will happen to you. I'll just give you an example. If you have a house, apartment, doesn't matter what it is. You come home one night, it's an ordinary night, you get ready for bed, whatever. If you're in a house with a family, all of a sudden, all these tear gas things come in through your windows. Nobody ever knocks, okay? It never happens that you hear a knock on the door, you go and he says, "Hi, we're with the DF, whatever it is, DEA, and we want to look through your house, please." They could, but they don't. The whole thing is about frightening you so that you're so numb, you can do nothing, you can't even react. So what's going to happen is this. All these people, suddenly, all these things come in all your windows, you're stunned, you're swallowed up by tear gas, whatever new thing they've got now, And they all come in at the same time. They beat down the door. They come crashing in through the windows. This is how they do it. So they start screaming FBI or CSIS or whatever it is they scream. Throw you down on your stomach, your arms go behind your back. The woman, the journalist Juliet, I forget her last name, in Ottawa, they didn't throw the tear gas, but they went right through her house and took her computers, her files, they took everything. Because she found out about Mahar Arar. What happened to him? Oh, they can't have that. So they just took all her stuff, confiscated everything, broke into the house, took her. She ended up not in jail, but having to bail herself out and all that. That's what happened to her. So originally this law was made for big drug kings who, when they thought they were going to be caught, they sold everything they owned, went back to Italy, wherever it was they were from. So to stop them from doing that, they developed this law. Now, what this law says is this. You really have no hope under this because it's like Napoleonic law. The law says that if they find that your home has been involved in anything illegal, if you say you're growing some plants in your backyard, even if you don't know they're there, even if they belong to a tenant of yours, you are liable. So it's not even about you, it's if your property, and they can do this quite easily, if your property is involved in anything illegal, say that you come home, you've been out to the theater, you come home, you see a light on in your garage, you go in, there's the CSIS are there, and on the table are great big plastic packages of heroin, whatever. We found these here. This is done all the time. There they are, they're on your property. Now, you're all evicted right now. You're evicted even before the hearing, okay? So they plant whatever it is. It's there. You're evicted. Doesn't matter whether it's a big house, apartment, whatever. You can be evicted that night, wherever you have to stay, whatever, until the hearing, which is supposed to be maybe in 10 days or 2 weeks. If you're lucky, you'll get a hearing. If you're not, you won't even get a hearing. And what it means is they can confiscate everything you own, including all your bank accounts, money, what your wife has, your husband has, whatever, because they have found this on your property. That's the law of forfeiture. Now, even if you're not charged, they get to keep all your property. So you think to yourself, okay, so I'll go for the hearing, but no, you have to prove you haven't put that there. You have to prove to them, so it's just the opposite to the normal law, you have to prove to them you have not put that stuff there. Well, how can you do that? If you didn't put it there, you can't prove you didn't. They're there, they're saying they found it there. It's used 50,000 times a year in the States. 50,000 times every year. It's never talked about. So you're there, you go off, you wait for the hearing. You go to the hearing, they pick the judge they want. And you're still stuck there having to prove that you didn't leave that stuff in your house. So what happens then? Then they take, if you have any bank accounts, that's taken. Anything you own, your money's taken, bonds are taken, anything on stocks, it's all taken. Because you know what they can say about it? It's all profits from illegal activities. They can take all that because it's profits from your illegal activity. And you can't prove that it isn't. You can't even prove you didn't put the stuff there. And even if you say, I'm not living in the house, I rented it, doesn't matter. It's your property. It's your property. They don't care who put it there, really. Even if you can prove a tenant put it there, they get to keep your house and everything else. So they can take everything else because it's profits. See, if they don't like If they've done all this and you still won't stop doing what you're doing, then they bankrupt you totally, so you don't have a pit to hiss in, as they say, or a window to throw it out of. And then you have nowhere to go. You're like a street person. Unless you have a relative who will take you in, that's what happens. And it's done in the States 50,000 times a year. So you forfeit everything. Now, the FBI can get probable cause to enter and seize everything. All they have to do is go to their favorite judge. They want to set you up. They come in, they have probable cause because they plant the stuff. And all it has to be is your property. Okay? You don't have to be convicted or even charged to lose all your property. You don't have to be convicted of anything. You don't even have to be charged to lose your assets. You can be charged, if you're lucky, and go to trial and lose because the feds will appeal until your money is gone. But you don't have any money left anyway because they took it. So maybe your friends can help you or somebody. You'll still lose. Nobody ever wins. And if you're not charged, you only get a hearing to prove you are not guilty in front of a judge they choose. And you can't prove that. You have no evidence. If you say, well, I didn't put it there, it doesn't matter. The whole case rests on the fact that it's your property it happened on. Maybe you're away, maybe you've rented it for 10 years, doesn't matter. If some guy's growing marijuana in your yard, it's your property, goes to them. They don't care. If it happened on your property goes, okay? They don't give a damn who's done it, if you're guilty, not guilty. Now, when they take all this, guess where it goes, okay? 80% of what they take from you goes to the police. Yes. This is so profitable. That's why they do it 50,000 times a year, and it's always people they don't like. And they can never defend themselves. And 20% goes, guess where? 20% goes to the judge. Now, why would they say to you, oh, we'll let you off, you're not guilty? Look, that's called the law of forfeiture. 50,000 times a year, and you won't see it in the paper. They do not even want you to know that this exists. But we have it here too. But you'll never read about it in the paper. Oh, so-and-so on the financial page. Oh, so-and-so just lost all his assets. He was accused of blah, blah, blah. Couldn't prove that he was innocent. So all his stuff is gone now. So how are you going to fight that when you don't have a nickel or a dime to fight it with? You've got to have lawyers. It's a hopeless case. So in the end, if you have anything at all, unless you're a street person, well, then I guess they'll just throw you in jail for the fun of it, accuse you of something else. But you just lose everything you own. And they make sure you do, because they do it every time. They'll put whatever they want there. Guns, drugs, anything. And they'll just be there with it. You'll come home and find them there, and this is what happens. So whoever thinks, oh yeah, I own my house, I have a bank account, I'm okay. If you don't keep your head down, if you get in the way of, if you're doing something unpopular with them at all, this could happen. If you don't take the first warnings, if you're censored, you're not allowed to speak anywhere, you're not allowed to teach anywhere, and you just abide by that, well, you might be allowed to keep your stuff. But if you keep on with it, this is a very popular way of cutting you right off at the pass and making money. I mean, where do you think all the money comes from for all the black ops? The banks don't have any real money. They launder money, but they don't have any real money. A bank can't even make a dime's worth of real money. It's all on paper. It's checkbook money. So where are they going to get? They need to hand over cash for all these operations. Where do they get it? They get it from this kind of thing. So what I'm saying is, whoever is still under the impression or the delusion that we are living in a free country with free speech, no. We're worse off than the US, actually. They have those amendments. And you will not get any American person to give up their right to bear arms. You will not. They'll just take to the hills, join a militia. That's it. But Canadians are different. They are different. I don't see Canadians. I hope they've changed, but in my books, I don't see them. I see them knuckling under. I see them, no, it's not really happening. I won't pay any attention. It'll go away. It's nice to be nice and meet nice people. You know, that's the attitude of most Canadians. They like law and order. But if the laws are bad laws, if the laws impinge on other people, we're involved in Afghanistan now. How many more countries we're going to be involved in before people get angry? No, I'm not sending my kid over there so that Dick Cheney has more money and Halliburton has bigger factories. Why? You know, why should my children be killed while he defers his, what did he defer it 4 times? Once in university, deferred it. Then they said if you were married, you didn't have to go, so then he married. Then they said married have to go, but if you have a kid, so then he had a kid. I mean, they'll do anything to stay out of danger. They're the ones who are sending your kids off. So as soon as people start turning the other way and saying, I'm not going to do this, no, I resent, you're not going to have any authority over me, this is what happens. This is what happens. You work within the system gives, the system can take away. That's what's going on now. To start thinking about what's going to be happening in the future. Are you going to go along to get along, to be safe? No, it's what Benjamin Franklin said. Those who will sell their freedom for security will have neither. Will have neither. That's what Ben said, and he was absolutely right. So in the meantime, they're thinking, we've got this to hold over their heads. If the propaganda doesn't work, then we have to come down a little harder. So we'll surveil them, find out what they're talking about. If I want to have a conversation about something personal, or I'll go out and sit with somebody in a coffee shop, or have a drink somewhere and discuss it. Or I'm not saying there can't be a van 3 blocks away with the little rod, where they're over that way, we'll just point it. I mean, they have a lot of primitive things they can do. But the point is, you have to start dodging things. It's terrible to have to live this way. But when you understand how you are overlooked, that's what surveil means. Sur means over. Sir. Nobody would say we're going to do surveillance. That's under. Of course, it may come to that. You don't know where they could be now. So, sir, and valence is you're overlooking, you're looking. You're overlooking to see what's going on with everybody. What are the patterns? What are they up to? What are they going to do next? They're always on the qui-vive to see when the public might do something, might finally object. And that's what surveillance is about. So we find out what they're doing, we give them a couple of warnings, or we censor them. Oh, you're not getting in this paper. No, you're not going to talk at this school. No, no. All these people, so you can't talk anywhere. You can't write anything. Maybe you can go on the net, but they take the black and black it all out. So then they're doing this, then they're doing this. That doesn't work. Then what does he own? All the surveilling is to find out what you own. How much power do you have locally, personally? They want to know that. How much influence do you have on the people you know? What groups are you involved with? Could they be called cults? So that we can have a Waco or a Ruby Ridge, maybe an Oklahoma City bombing, whatever, and we'll blame them. So now, the last thing, if all this is gone, and you think, you know, this guy, he's going to keep at it. He's going to keep going to court. Suddenly, this guy that owns this, and he's just lost it, he might find he comes home or he's with friends, suddenly he's arrested for a couple of murders. It's quite simple. They've taken some stuff, they've put it in this place, they've left it around where this thing has happened, they blame. So next, if that doesn't work, then like Timothy McVeigh, he's going to be executed. He's going to be mind controlled, and he's going to go on TV and say, kill me now, I've done it. Even though all the proof and the agents have already said, well, no, he couldn't have done it. There were bombs in there that didn't even go off. We found them, and everybody said, no, there was a group. But he comes up after being visited by Jolyon West, the other nutcase, monster, shrink, spends 3 months with them, and right after that he comes on TV and he says, no, no, I want to be executed now. Why does he say that? Because in about 3 months, if he lives, he's going to remember, oh, I didn't do that. Oh, I remember. His real memories are going to surface because they haven't done a real job on him. It was too short a time. So they said, well, just let him say he wants to die now. These are the people running things. They're running things. The psychos are running the asylum. See, it's all done legally. The banks have legal robbery. Because something's legal doesn't mean it's good or even moral. They just make a law to cover the different robberies. Income tax. But that isn't, your income was never supposed to be taxed, only your property. That kept the place going, the infrastructure, but it wasn't taxed on your income. No one was ever supposed to be taxed on income. But when the Federal Reserve came in, they wanted a guarantee that their phony interest on the money they printed, middlemen, we don't need them, they said, we want to be paid the interest. So where are we going to get that? And so the people in collusion with them said, well, we'll just tax the people. We'll tax their income. It'll all go to you. That's where it goes. That's why the whole place is falling apart. Deficits bigger and bigger and bigger. They're the first criminals. They're the ones that invent the wars. They're the ones that have made all these laws. Okay? You can't win. Well, you can if you have a big enough group, because there's more of us than there is of them. So the law of forfeiture, and then the last complete censorship is execution. So we're like going from soft censorship. Oh, we won't put your lectures in the paper. They're a bit controversial. We don't want those. That's how it starts. And that has happened to me, yes. And it just builds and builds until you can't say anything anymore that goes against what they want, okay? So if a war correspondent wants to get the truth out, he gets shot. Usually under cover of battle and fire, he gets shot. 66 were killed in Iraq. About 30 were killed in the Jenin, Nablus. And just to get back to the beginning of all this, it's gone on forever and a day, only now they've got the technology to do anything they want and say anything they want, and we will believe it. This is what's happened, just a few little examples from history. The library at Alexandria, thousands and thousands of books destroyed, utterly. The 4,000 Tibetan monasteries with manuscripts 3,000 years old, destroyed by the Chinese, all of them. 4,000 monasteries, about 400 left. Think of Socrates. Oh, we don't like that. Drink this hemlock. Oh, okay. What else? Galileo, the Inquisitions, all the witch burnings in Europe. 3 million women who basically were healers, just local healers with medicine, burnt at the stake. Why? A lot of them had property. Oh, yes. You call someone a witch and burn her at the stake, you get the property. Look for the money every time. Always ask yourself who benefits from this travesty, and you'll find out who invented it. And Velikovsky, he was a psychoanalyst, but he wasn't an astronomer. So they blacklisted him in the 50s. He was proven right with many things he said he was proven right, but he wasn't a real astronomer. So they blacklisted him, insulted him, assassinated his character. That's all censorship. And he was proven right. He said, no, Venus is not like the Earth. It's hot, about 800 degrees. No, it's like the Earth. He was proven right. Of course he was. But because he wasn't an astronomer, so the scientific community will censor other scientists, yes. And of course, in Iraq, now there were 2 reasons for Iraq. Iraq is the cradle of civilization. Iraq was Sumer. There were 4,000 tells, like a tell is a mound. 4,000 tells over there, and before when Britain had was paying for the oil, and the archaeologists were over there all the time digging. They found thousands of tablets of Sumer. Nobody knew it existed before the 50s. But now, this is censoring our real history as well, because not one archaeologist will set foot over there now. He will have a cancer within months. The whole area of the Middle East is now uninhabitable. You shouldn't eat food grown there. The air, the wind is blowing the DU around in huge quantities. They are depopulating at a huge extreme right now. And nobody wants to know about Sumer. Sumer, yes, the first civilization, they don't want anyone to know about that, so that's part of it. So the depleted uranium cancers, the next war. So, we'll just go back now to the usual methods. Those who print the money print the news. Remember that? Remember that. They won't keep making money off you unless they can print the news. So, the methods of censorship. You don't release information, number 1. You just don't release information. That's the first one. There are omissions in every newspaper and media you listen to. Omissions everywhere, so that it doesn't make sense sometimes. And the people in the media censor themselves. I heard a guy on the radio once, he's saying, nobody tells me what to say. I'm perfectly independent. And I thought, yeah, you know what you're not supposed to go near. Nobody has to tell you. You know what you're not supposed to talk about. You know why Sarrett lost his job on this guy on the local radio. He lost his job. He had some guest on they didn't approve of. Then you can ban, and everybody who goes and gets a library book, you will go on a list, okay? They know right now all the books you like to read if they're in the library. So, not only that, Indigo, chapters. They can ban any books from their stores they want. There's certain books you'll never be able to buy in those stores. And of course, some religious cult down in the U.S. just had a big book burning. It's some form of the Bible. It wasn't like their form, so they burnt them all. Collected them, burnt them all. That was like 2 weeks ago. Then you can assassinate the character of the author. Oh yeah, but he blah, 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 blah. Assassinate his character so his work won't be read. Then, if the slander and the libel doesn't work, then you can give him a bad review or no review. Just pretend he hasn't even got anything out there. That's still censorship. It happens every day. We had a radio shutdown. You do that. And like Al Jazeera, that's censored before it even goes on the air. You jail journalists who won't reveal their source. If they did, nobody would ever talk to them again. You can confiscate all the evidence acquired by the journalists, like they did with Juliet, I can't think of her last name. O'Neill, that's right. They took all her stuff. You can threaten journalists, which Bush did. You can murder them through the war. You can be set up if you're a whistleblower, like Elliot Spitzer. This is the last one I remember who was set up because he was blowing the whistle on some corruption. They set him up with some call girl. So all these you can do to censor people and what they're writing and what they're talking about. It's done every day. So remember, I'll just leave you with this. It's also, there's facts, there's knowledge. You can't have knowledge without some facts. Then there's truth. And please, don't give me the New Age stuff about, oh yeah, that's your truth. But my truth, forget that. That's another scam. The whole New Age thing was invented as a distraction. People who aren't interested in facts, let's get into the voodoo part of it. You know, it's not going to work. So then you have the truth. Then you have belief, okay? Now, when you read up on all this and you get into what's going on, remember, this word belief, the middle of it is lie, and that's not a game. It comes from that. It comes from the Old English word belie. If you said to somebody, your actions belie what you say, you're calling them a hypocrite. That's where belief comes from. You get that when you have no evidence. If you have no evidence, you're left with belief. Now, some beliefs are good, uplifting, but other beliefs that say to you, oh, you're superior to everybody else, you're not going to be one of the ones wiped out. They're nothing compared to you or your group. You come first. That is not helpful. So it depends on what you believe. But a belief, as I say, is when you have absolutely no evidence. So, now, this is my saying, you can have it too. With all this, remember this, the best lie, and they do it to us every day, the best lie is the one that is almost true. Okay? You get most of it. You think they're honest. You don't know what they've left out. That would change the whole concept. That's what's used all the time. Well, give them enough of those facts so that they'll think this. We haven't really lied to them. We've just omitted a few things. That's what the press does every day of the week. Sure, you get some information and you think, oh, that makes sense, but you don't have it all. If you had it all, you might change your whole attitude about it. But that's how they work. And that's what the press are now. They're, like he said, they're prostitutes. I call them prostitutes. But basically, that's what they're doing. And this, all of this about promise, this is also verboten. Mustn't speak of that. That's the tool they used. So that's what's happening. So first of all, you could spend days, months, years digging through to the facts. But it's another thing getting them out. You know, no, that doesn't bother me. I know I must be doing something right. If the press is doing that or whatever, they don't want so many people here. Why? Because I'm telling the truth. And you know what they say about truth? Truth is the daughter of time. It will out. No matter what you do, no matter how many years, the truth will out.